This is the story of how a detective persuaded a serial killer to confess.
Do the right thing. And tell me where Sian is.
It's a television drama now, household names playing the lead roles.
You got a car?
But it's a true story.
This is right out of the pages of a TV or film drama. And it wasn't. It was what actually transpired between these two men.
The 47-year-old man from Swindon is in custody, having been arrested for kidnap and 2 murders.
Why did an experienced detective, Steve Fulcher, break rules to obtain the admission?
It's one of the most astonishing stories that I've ever come across.
How had a serial killer been able to live and pray in suburbia?
He's a psychopath, basically.
It's about a victim's mother and her fight for the redemption of a disgraced police officer.
To the day I die, will always be grateful for what he did.
This is the story of how a killer took the lives of 2 women, left 2 families in grief, left a town in anger, and nearly got away with murder. My name is Robert Murphy. I covered this story for ITV News. I was in the press conferences and court hearings. I interviewed the families too. For this programme, I've spoken with the writer and actors who were so inspired by a detective's real-life gamble that they turned it into a drama.
Felt to me like he was just trying to do the right thing to find a young woman who's been missing.
In March 2011, Sian O'Callaghan, a 22-year-old office worker, disappeared.
She was always smiling from a very young age. A very happy person, yeah, radiant. Can't think that she was hardly ever down. If she was down, it would have to be something serious, but generally always upbeat.
Sian had been out with friends to the Suju nightclub in Swindon. Security footage showed her leaving alone. She wasn't seen alive again.
I just want to say how very worried we are about Sian.
Her boyfriend, Kevin REAPE, contacted police and soon he was making a public appeal.
She's been missing now for over 2 days, and it's not like her not to come home.
Wiltshire police brought in a senior investigator, Detective Superintendent Steve Fulcher.
Okay, concentrate between 2:52 and 3:24.
He's played in the ITV drama A Confession by Martin Freeman.
He struck me as very professional, very high standards, and yeah, just not a pushover in any way, I think, you know. I don't think he would ever go, yeah, that'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? That'll do. I think he wants, I don't know, he struck me as somebody who's like, you're going to do this is going to be done the right way.
Steve Fulcher's team found CCTV footage of Sian walking home. What they saw next was chilling. They saw a car pull up, its headlights distorting what happens. It stops for a moment, then drives away. Was Sian a willing passenger, or was this an abduction? And her phone was now connecting with this mast, 10 miles south of Swindon near Savernake Forest, nowhere near her home.
Right, I want the dogs out. I want a search initially concentrated on the entrances and exits to Savernake Forest. I want the route from Suju's all the way to Sian's address searched again, concentrating on ditches, alleyways, anywhere she may have crawled if she was involved in a traffic accident. I want these posters put up.
Posters for publicity, but the lead detective wanted more than headlines. He needed evidence in the hunt for Sian.
It couldn't be harder. 6.5 mile radius of the Savernake Forest. Now, clearly, that in any terms is a difficult search issue, and I haven't got explicit locations that I can pinpoint a search parameter around.
A bit further, please.
Searches began of this sprawling, historic woodland.
Down to the next bridleway.
By now, 3 days after Sian's disappearance, a volunteer army of hundreds turned up, desperate to find the missing woman.
She's the nicest person you'll ever meet.
Yeah,
she has a big impact on everybody.
Everybody
even if you
she
met her
meets.
for 5 minutes.
Yeah, she's got such a widespread group of friends.
When he was looking for Sian, as time goes on, obviously, it becomes less likely that that person is going to be alive, you know. But until, you know, I think his argument was if there's a 5% chance someone is alive, we have to work on the basis that they're alive until we know that they're dead.
Back in Swindon, a brilliant piece of policing by one of Fulcher's team. An officer looked at patrol vehicles' number plate recognition cameras from the time Sian vanished and found this shot, a car matching that which picked up Sian. Now they had a number plate, they had a taxi firm, and soon they would have a prime suspect, Christopher Halliwell.
Halliwell has got some previous convictions, mostly low level, last one back in '86 for burglary. String of aliases. No history of violence or sex offences. We have checked out the home address. The car is on the drive, but the surveillance team have said that it's going to be very, very difficult to put a lump on it without setting off an alarm. So it could be there we're going to have to do a full surveillance old style.
Detectives approached the prime suspect, trying to find out more.
Mr. Halliwell?
Yes.
Wiltshire Police, we're here to take a DNA sample. Your cab company told you about this?
Oh, yeah.
We're doing it with all the cab drivers in the area.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
What time did you finish on Saturday morning?
About 1-ish. I was home by 1:30, I know that.
Halliwell was lying. Detectives would soon find these images of him cruising the streets later than 1:30, in the moments before Sian vanished. Surveillance teams began following Halliwell as he went into the night, fueling up, then driving away. His car had "Find Sian" posters on the rear window. They followed him into the countryside as he threw away and burnt seat covers. Then he disappeared.
We lost him.
Are you kidding?
I'm sorry, but it's so remote out here we had to hang back or he would have spotted us a mile off.
Oh, how long ago did you lose him?
About half an hour ago, near Barbary Castle.
The next morning, police arrested Halliwell at a supermarket. He'd bought tablets. They feared he'd take his own life, and the route to Sian would disappear. Halliwell should have been taken to a police station, but Steve Fulcher had another idea. It would be a gamble, unprecedented even, and it meant tearing up the rulebook.
As the Police and Criminal Evidence Act dictates, the minute he's arrested and given his rights, he's brought back to a police station where he will inevitably say no comment. At that point, any chance that he had of recovering Sian alive goes. So he decided, I think that Sian's right to life trumps Halliwell's rights as a suspect. That was Steve Fulcher's ethos. And so he said, I don't want Christopher Halliwell to say nothing. I don't want him to hide behind a lawyer and say no comment. I want him to tell me where Sian is. And something happened, something passed between him and Halliwell.
Steve Fulcher asked one of his colleagues to come with him, write down everything that was said between him and Christopher Halliwell. And it reads like a TV drama, you know what I mean?
Steve Fulcher ordered that Chris Halliwell be brought here to Barbary Castle. It's an Iron Age hill fort in the Wiltshire countryside. He wanted to speak, he told his junior officers, man to man with the suspect. Now he should, according to the rule book, have read Halliwell his rights one more time, but he said that he thought that Sian could still be alive, and if there was a present threat to life, then he would use these so-called emergency powers.
This is your last chance. Do the right thing. And tell me where Sian is.
You got a car?
Chris Halliwell directed the police teams across the border into Oxfordshire to here, and he admitted that yes, he had killed Sian, and he'd left her body in a copse of trees down there. Later that day, Sian would be found. Now, according to the arrest guidelines, Chris Halliwell should have been cautioned one more time by the police. there was no more need for emergency powers. There was no more imminent threat to life because Sian was dead. But that caution didn't happen. What followed was this. Steve Fulcher and Chris Halliwell sat at a bench. Steve Fulcher would later say that Halliwell seemed to just open up. They shared a cigarette even. And it was here that Chris Halliwell turned to Steve Fulcher and said,
"Do you want another one?"
No, I won't.
So was Christopher Halliwell really confessing to a second victim? The killer directed Steve Fulcher and his team on a long route through the twisting countryside. Eventually, he ordered the detectives to stop, and he had a harrowing revelation which he had kept secret for years. Chris Halliwell led police to this field in Gloucestershire. He found his own personal landmark, which was this dip in the old dry stone wall. And he climbed inside the field. He paced inside.
7, 8, 9, 10. She's down there.
He said that years before he'd murdered a girl, buried her here. She'd lain here ever since. He said he didn't know her name, her age, or even what year he killed her. But crucially, Steve Fulcher again should have cautioned Halliwell, and he didn't. And that was wrong in the eyes of the law.
To have someone confess, or to have someone volunteer another body that they're responsible for making is extraordinary, you know. And I think for Steve Fulcher, it was an absolutely sort of mind-blowing moment of like, are you talking about another girl here?
Halliwell was brought back to Swindon. He got a lawyer for the first time who advised him to say no comment. Steve Fulcher told the media what had happened.
I personally was taken to 2 locations by this individual. One near Uffington, where we discovered the body of a woman who we believe is Sian, and also to another location near North Leach, where I believe a second body may be.
Back at the field in Gloucestershire, excavators went to work. It didn't take long.
Since we spoke last, officers have began work to recover this second body, and this morning officers have found remains which we believe to be human at the location at East Leach.
So who was this girl in the field?
We're having to use a technique called low copy number in terms of trying to produce a full DNA profile. Now, this takes time. I was hoping for the result today, but I haven't had that result back.
Then came the breakthrough.
A missing woman whose body was discovered by police investigating the murder of Sian O'Callaghan has been identified.
We were able to provide a positive hit from the DNA database and identify that body as that of Rebecca Godden, known to her family and friends as Becky. It was Becky's birthday yesterday. She would have been 29 years old.
Becky was a very beautiful, intelligent girl. She was my daughter. She was loved by all her family. As a teenager, she got involved with people who introduced her to drugs. She left school and her life spiraled. She told me one day she loved me so much. She couldn't keep putting me through this hell. And she was leaving and wouldn't come back to me until she was clean. I never saw her again.
Her mother and her father and stepfather never really knew whether she'd just gone off again and had decided never to come back. I think Karen, in her heart of hearts, was terrified of the thought that she might be dead.
Steve Fulcher had 2 victims, a suspect, and the legal process began dramatically. This was Halliwell's first court appearance, which happened before Becky was identified. Anger in Swindon boiled over. Then in court, a catastrophe for police and prosecutors. A judge agreed with Halliwell and his barrister that his admission to being a double killer could not be put before a jury. There was DNA linking Halliwell with Sian's killing, her blood on his seat covers. In 2012, he pleaded guilty to her murder, but Becky's charge was effectively dropped.
A taxi driver jailed for life for the killing of a young nightclubber in Swindon has escaped charges for a second murder. Christopher Halliwell admitted stabbing to death 22-year-old Sian Callahan in March last year. But despite leading police to the body of a second victim, he cannot be prosecuted for that crime because legal rules were breached.
And things got worse for Steve Fulcher. John Godden, Becky's father and the former husband of Godden-Edwards, made a complaint to the police watchdog about the officer who had discovered his daughter.
It becomes common practice, doesn't it? When you've been in a job for 30 years, that's the first thing you do. Read and write, get a solicitor. As soon as he said, if he did, you mentioned another, you're reading their rights again.
Following John Godden's complaint, Steve Fulcher was found guilty of gross misconduct for breaching arrest guidelines and for contact with 2 journalists. I was one of them.
Now, I have to tell you, Steve, that I'm suspending you from duty with immediate effect. It's been brought to my attention that you had an unauthorised meeting with a member of the press, the ITV journalist Rob Murphy.
Within a year, he had resigned from Wiltshire Police, a career which had once seemed gilt-edged, now in tatters.
Yes, we believe in PACE, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. So, and as indeed does Fulcher. So it's an almost insoluble problem. It's what happens when these two forces collide. What is right and what is wrong? And I understand why what happened to Fulcher happened to him. And I understand why he lost his career.
I've interviewed Godden-Edwards, Steve Fulcher's most passionate supporter, a number of times. She was horrified at his fate.
To the day I die, will always be grateful for what he did. He made morally the right decision as a father, as a police officer, and he was just doing his job, and he has been punished for just doing his job.
Godden-Edwards started a petition calling for arrest guidelines to be changed. She took it to the corridors of power.
I'm hoping that it would achieve the justice system to be a lot more balanced.
In a confession, Imelda Staunton plays Godden-Edwards, the woman who went from worried mum to grieving parent to furious campaigner.
She fought for Steve Fulcher, she fought in his corner, and you think, well, hadn't she enough on her plate with her own grief and her... But no, she was on the side of, in her mind, the side of right. And this man has been utterly penalised for discovering this serial killer.
Godden-Edwards kept working away, applying pressure, while for a year the inquiry appeared to be going nowhere. Then a new lead officer took over, Detective Superintendent Sean Memory. He got results immediately.
I was looking at the Ramsbury area in relation to water and ponds, and we've ended up here and we've noticed what appeared to be a boot in the water which we've recovered.
What he had found within hours was Halliwell's deposition site, a remote pond where he'd hidden boots belonging to Sian, but there was no evidence here of Becky. So he ordered a search of Halliwell's old home in Swindon. And Sean Memory spoke with the killer face to face. Halliwell appeared to offer the detective a deal.
I can resolve the matter, but I don't want you coming back every couple of years, every 5 years, every 10 years, whatever, with this, with something like that. As if it goes to court and I'm found guilty, that's it. They lock me up and throw me away the key. I'm under no illusion, I'm not stupid.
Wiltshire Police declined. But they had other leads. This spade was found by Steve Fulcher's team in Halliwell's shed in 2011. It was now analysed. It had the same unique soil profile as the field where Becky was found, and new witnesses came forward. All of this meant that a new judge in 2016 ruled that Halliwell could be tried at last for Becky's murder. And Halliwell decided he would represent himself in court. One witness would be the former detective Steve Fulcher. During the trial at Bristol Crown Court, the tables were turned, killer questioning police officer. As Fulcher finished giving evidence, Halliwell shouted, "It's been a pleasure ruining your career." It took the jury just 2 hours to decide Halliwell's guilt. He was given the full life sentence he feared. He will never enjoy freedom again.
We have waited over 5 years for this momentous day. It has been an extremely painful journey, but today we've received the justice that has felt like an eternity coming for our beautiful little girl, Becky.
Despite the efforts of Godden-Edwards, there has been no change to arrest guidelines so far. Steve Fulcher is now a security consultant in Africa. He says he's unable to find a job in the UK, although he has published his memoirs, upon which a confession is partly based. But the story does not end there.
Now, there have always been suspicions that the convicted double murderer Christopher Halliwell may have killed more than twice. Could there have been more young female victims in the 8 years between his first and his last known attacks? To try to find out, police have begun digging up the back garden of a house in Swindon where Halliwell used to live.
Were there other victims? If so, who? For more than a week, forensic teams investigated, digging up the garden, ripping up the floors, but they found nothing. Detectives at the force where Steve Fulcher used to work remain open-minded about whether Halliwell killed again. The murderer left 2 families in grief. The inquiry left a detective's career in ruins. And if he struck more than twice, only Halliwell knows. Police perhaps will only learn for sure if he gives a final confession.